Hello, thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Wise Content Creates Wealth. You've heard that content is king. Well, wise content rules the world. Wise content is data intelligence driven storytelling content created for promotional purposes. It's the heart of modern marketing. And without it, digital marketers will fall behind their competition, lose connectivity with their customers, and ultimately fail at being profitable and successful. I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, and I'm a marketing technology expert. I'm also an award-winning content producer who can create incredibly detailed, high-quality articles and other types of content. Additionally, I lead content teams that produce thousands of pieces of content a month for Fortune 500 companies. My company is Galileo Tech Media, which executes on creating wise content and marketing campaigns. Today, we're going to talk about content and award-winning content, like Oscar award-winning content and Emmy award-winning content, and how it's created with one of the leading guys in that field. But first, I have a little story to tell about, I like to tell stories of how some sort of content has made major changes in the world. On January 15th in 2015, a Twitter user, an activist named April Rain, first tweeted the hashtag Oscar so white. And she put it in the context of Oscar so white, they asked to touch my hair. And an immediate response to all 20 acting nominations for that year's upcoming Academy Award is being given to white male actors. Within that day, the hashtag became viral and was trending on Twitter. Many Twitter users and prominent people of color in the film industry riffed on the hashtag with humor, but not without also leveling serious criticisms against the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Oscar So White hashtag was the catalyst for an enduring social justice campaign. In 2016, the Academy announced its slate of acting nominations for the upcoming awards, and then once again, it was exclusively composed of white actors. The hashtag Oscar So White was revived, ensuring that the spotlight continued to be on long existing inequities in the awards recognition, as well as the larger Hollywood film industry for lacking authentic representation of diverse peoples. Now, there's lots of debate upon why that is, but critics of the Academy asserted that nothing would change in the way of recognition as long as its memberships, and hence the voting body, was still mostly white men. The argument that with such a homogeneous voting body would always be less inclined to advocate for films that do not represent their experiences, films that represent the experience of the marginalized. So the Academy responded to the second wave of criticism in 2016 with an announcement of set goals to invite a wider breadth of actors and filmmakers to join their ranks by 2020, which would ultimately make the Academy Awards voting body more diverse in gender, race, and ethnicity. And as of June 2020, the Academy Board announced that it was actually surpassed its goals of inclusion, and the new member class was 45% women, 36% underrepresented ethnic racial communities, and 49% international from 68 countries. And while the Academy sought to make these actionable changes to the demographics of its membership, there are still those who feel this is sufficient systematic change for Hollywood. But I say that representation is a major change in how they were operating, and it was accomplished by a hashtag campaign. One piece of content started something that spiraled into a major change, and that is the point of wise content. Many of you might know I'm a political animal and I have my opinions upon the politics of this, but that's not what I'm putting out right now. I'm pointing out the fact that that one piece of content made such a major change. I personally have had the experience of doing a tweet that went viral and caused 50,000 signups for a mommy product within an hour and crashed the servers. So, and it was done through research about the proper time of day and the nature of the what was supposed to be given away, and the nature of how you promoted it, and understanding of that particular niche community reacted. In this case, I knew that all the free offer sites picked up things at around 11 a.m. and copied from each other and put it all out. So I timed the tweet with the right content. At that time, it got picked up by all the free offer people. They went out and threw it out in a lot of places. Then other people picked it up. They got a big jump, and then a lot of people picked it up and shared it, and boom, it was a huge success. So that is, in a way, the simple essence of wise content is using data and a knowledge of your audience to create a huge promotional bump. I have a guest today who knows a little bit about this. He's an Emmy-nominated executive producer and creative director. His name is Rich Bornstein, and he owns a company called Bornstein Media, which creates cutting-edge visual campaigns to establish and enhance and accelerate companies and brands to the next level. And as a marketing head and executive for studios such as Goldwyn, Warner Brothers, and Paramount, his work led to numerous Oscar and Emmy Award wins and nominations. Hello, Rich.
Hey, how are you, Joseph? Thanks for having me. We were talking about it earlier. It's been a long time trying to set this one up, so I'm so glad.
Oh my goodness, yeah, no, I had told you about my adventures in babysitting this last 6 months.
Wow. No, so that's great.
And I solved it. I solved my problems with another viral story. So I believe in what you and I do. But you started your career as a sports reporter.
Yes.
Where was that, and how did that happen?
Hey, you know what? That's what I wanted to be. That was what I just grew up thinking. I love sports. I wanted to do it. So I had an opportunity. I was living here in Southern California, so I had an opportunity to go to Long Beach Press Telegram and write sports. That's what I did. And what it taught me was, because I didn't, you don't just come on the scene and get to cover major sports. You got to do the lesser things. So I would always do a lot of the obscure features and things like that. And it basically hit home something that I had read from John Gregory Dunn years earlier, which was sports writing was the search for an angle. It was positioning, what you were going to write about. And so that, because the days of, so-and-so won 4-3, those days were over. So it really taught me how to find the nuggets in stories, get the nuggets out of people. And it's kind of what I've lived my professional life, with that experience. I ended up covering gymnastics in the '84 Olympics. I was a young man. I'm not that old now, but and that was the year that the women's gymnastics blew up. That was Mary Lou Retton and
I remember that, yeah,
and all that. So I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and then cool. And then it led me to Warner Brothers, but that's a separate story. So you were a writer, so you were creating content. So yes, yeah, always.
What was and you mentioned some aspects of it, but what would you think is your most important takeaway going from that and jumping to your careers that about content and how to make it viral in a sense, even in the old-fashioned day of newspapers?
Right. Well, like I said, the idea is anybody can write a story, anybody can do an interview, I think, but the idea is what makes it interesting. What makes that person that's sitting across from you or next to you or whatever, what really is going to get people interested in their story? That's the biggest thing that I took away from. I realized if I could get those nuggets, and how did I do that? Well, research, which I think you referred to earlier, is crucial. I'd always look for try to look for the little bit of information so I could refer to it in the interview, so they knew that they were, whoever my subject was, that I wasn't just somebody like filling out the form. And I noticed when I got that emotional connection with the subject, I was going to get a much better interview. So that was the biggest thing that I took away from.
I think that's important. I think that's important to this day, to this moment. To before this a moment of getting on the podcast, I was researching. Right. I think researching is what makes it makes the difference between good content and great content. Right. Yeah. So you made a jump.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but you said something earlier. Well, I don't mean to jump ahead, but it's interesting. You sent out a tweet that went viral, that, made you a folk hero, which, God bless you. Cause we should all have those moments. I had something similar back when I was working at Goldwyn, on a movie called The Madness of King George. And that was based on a book called, or a play that was about George V, I believe. And so I went around and I started telling people, hey, the only reason we changed the name is because we didn't want people to think that they missed the first four parts of it, and that this was a sequel. And I got worldwide coverage on that. I mean, people picked it up. So it was pretty in the pre-tweet days, but again, it was the same kind of thing. And you'd be surprised, say, well, really? Yeah, really? What happened in the first four parts? Like, oh, come on, like whatever. But so, what goes around comes around.
Well, I think cleverness always counts. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the right clever line it can sometimes be more than all the other things that you can do.
Right.
We already got to take our first break. I was long-winded in the first part, but I usually am. And we'll come back and talk more about your career, and then dig into what you think about content.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy, back with the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast, and my guest, Rich Bornstein. So, Rich, when you look at the sports reporters of the past, and and now even when I look at you, you think of in some ways of that hard-boiled guy that is sitting in the back room talking to the people, drinking, having a cigar and drinking beer, and so there you are, a young guy coming into the sports world and doing this, and then all of a sudden, you jumped to Warner's brother in the publicity department. That's sort of a big career change. What made that happen?
Well, I mean, we laugh about it now. I laugh about it, but it was a big deal because they used to say you have ink in your veins when you're a newspaper guy, and how dare you, make the leap to publicity. So I just looked in the crystal ball. Basically, I was doing a lot of freelance writing, and I did a story on Bill Bixby, who you may remember. He was in the original My Favorite Martian. He was in The Courtship of Eddie's Father. I mean, as a kid, who didn't love that show, right? And then he did a lot of things. And so I was dealing with somebody from Warner Brothers, and I said, "Hey, what do you do besides sit in my interviews, or set my interviews up?" I said, "Can I come out and pick your brain?" And he said, "Sure. Don't just talk to me. You should talk to my boss." And I said, "Yeah, okay, great." and it ended up being a job interview. I don't know, I actually put a tie on, which was ridiculous. And and I sat in there, and he said, well, would I consider doing what they do? And I said, sure. They said, well, would you consider doing it for X amount of dollars? And I went like, I had to hold myself up on the couch because, I wasn't really making much money as a sports writer. I was, again, there were some factors. My boss at the time used to say to me, when I first moved here, I lived room and board for $90 a week, and I lived here. And I go, dude, the world's changed. But anyway, so I jumped at it, and it was career changing, obviously, but it was life changing. And my initial goal was to continue to write and do freelance stuff, which I did. But when you get working, you just can't. So my writing was limited to what I was doing professionally. But here's a great story. So we were redoing the press kits for Warner Brothers TV. And so my boss had mocked up this thing, and it was all going to be, Greek lettering in it. He said, oh, it doesn't matter. And I said, that's ridiculous. It should be real if this is going to have all our press materials. He said, well, you do whatever you want. So I wrote the history of Warner Brothers Television, which had not been done, before. And it went on all of our press kits. Okay, so now we flash forward. I've started my own company in the 2000s at some point. I'm in Warner Brothers, and I'm waiting for some interview to start. And I see a press kit. And I said, why do you have my old press kits laying around there? And they said, what do you mean? Oh, that's brand new. They used them like 20, 30, 40, they were still using what I created. Then my boss said, oh yeah, do it if you want to. So it just, it was kind of fun. It kind of made me feel good for 5 seconds,
That's great. Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah. But, it's interesting because, the sports writing, you think about it, is all about writing content. But once you get into publicity, it besides the relationships that you have to have, it becomes about content, right?
The world has changed. I don't need to tell you. In those days, it was important that you could write, that you could express yourself, that you had a pitch. You didn't call somebody and say, hey, so-and-so. You actually had to have an angle. Why, I need you to, I want you to talk to so-and-so. Why? And then not just because he or she's in a new project, but what makes it interesting. And I think those days are changed. Now it's like, what names do you have and all that kind of thing. Well, if you do something here, then I'll do it for you there. When I started, it was really about developing relationships and giving them a reason to, be interested in whatever you were talking about. So,
well, I think that the PR world, in some degrees, hasn't realized that. Yeah, the relationships and that what you're talking about is an important part of it. But the content marketing is really taken a lot of what PR used to do. SEO, things like that. And so, which is all content driven. It's dramatically content driven. And, I don't see PR firms becoming that hybrid PR/SEO firms that they should. Right. And, and I think that content writing is eventually going to become hugely important for the big PR firms. But
there's no question. There is really no question about, that it's all interrelated. Look, I can do it for you. If you came to me and I'd say, hey, this is what I think you ought to do, Joseph. And you'd say, if you agreed with me, then we do it. For me, it's a little harder because I hear the sound of my own voice and I go, oh, God, you sound awful. And I look and I go, wait. Used to have a 4-head. Now I got a 5-head. I don't really like myself on camera.
You still have hair. Come
on. Not according to my friends. They all tell me that.
Up here now.
Not according to my friends. They say you don't have anything. So, there's a little bit,
I cut all my hair off when I was in the 90s when I was 35 because it was going and I just went with it. The funny thing was the first day I did it, I also got interviewed by CNN for something. It was like a man in the street thing, but they told me when I was going to be on the TV, and I told my mom to go watch it. I was going to be on TV, and she go watch it. She said, "You did not tell me you shaved your head."
Yeah, it's always interesting. That's why I like to shoot myself up here, so I don't, so it doesn't become a 6-head, But I get it. But you rock it, Joseph.
Yeah,
I don't know whether I can pull that off. I don't know whether I
Yeah,
can pull
I've
that
got
off.
the great profile, so it works. But you ended up, then you had stints at Paramount Pictures, head of national film, feature film publicity. Then Samuel Goldwyn is the head of worldwide marketing.
Yeah.
You had some great success. You got any stories you want to tell us from that?
Well, there's a few stories. I mean, I really, a lot of people like talk about American Gladiators because when we started out, it was just, it was a TV show, and the criticism that we got with the demise of television, what's going to be next, public executions, and all this kind of crap that we got. I mean, I got calls from people around the world, from people like George Will that wanted to do a piece on it, and TV Guide made great fun of us, which at that time was the most widely circulated magazine that was out there. But in looking back, you realize that what we were doing became the future of television. It was a reality show, okay? And look, we learned along the way, what potholes to avoid. In other words, when we first started, we were going to give everybody those wrestling personalities, but it was real competition. So we invited all the press out, and it was packed. And for our first taping, and we had this character by the name of Malibu, and there was this one event where people would go like from 40 feet away, I think, and they would fly through the air, and they try to knock the guy off his pedestal. And he missed time from the pad, and the guy actually had a footprint right here on his forehead, and it knocked him. Sent him flying. He had to go to the emergency room. He had 20-something stitches, I believe. And then he came back and he met with the press. And the press said, "Well, God, that looked pretty ugly." And he goes, "Oh, hey man, I'm Malibu. I just went down and got some, I went to the beach, grabbed some rays, and I'm good to go." And I could see the media at that moment go, "This is bullshit." So, and we realized that those nonsensical personalities that we had actually scripted, what we wanted them to be, where it had to go right then and there, because it was real.
Authenticity.
It was real, and that's why it persevered. And look, there's been so many copycat shows from that. I mean, American Ninja Warriors, I think, is on now. They've been so many copycat shows, all from that simple premise of mano a mano. And I actually went around the country with the producers, using my skills as an interviewer, where we would find, we would interview people, and then they would go back and figure out who they wanted on the show. So that was fun. That was a Goldwyn, which was that was a studio known for prestigious art films. So the fact that we were dealing with Shakespeare or what other serious films and doing American Gladiators, it was fantastic. It really was a great time.
So, the question, I think that you're a brand expert, right? And so don't you think that the days when the brand could not live authentically to what they're doing is sort of over, and you really have to be authentic to the brand now?
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, first of all, you're a keystroke away from being discovered. So, you have to be authentic. And that's where the emotional connection comes in. That's where storytelling comes in. Because if you look, what's going to set you apart from everybody else that does what you do? If you listen to even even the ads that leading up to us talking today, telling your story, why content is important, let's differentiate ourselves, and all that is it's emotional connection. It's being authentic and telling people why they need to pay attention. Mm-hmm. And then I have my own theories about how best to do that, but you do it more in the printed side of things. It sounds like. I believe in the power of video. You combine the two and you've hit a home run.
Well, this is my foray into podcasting, is the realization that in my field, SEO and content marketing, it has been a lot of print, but now it's becoming more heavy in video, and I need to get into this space and understand it, and you got these audio only platforms like Clubhouse and things like that. So the world's changing again, and So it's become a holistic approach to content.
Well,
right?
because you have me on the show, I'll give you a special deal. We'll talk afterwards, and then.
All right.
No, there's a lot of ways to incorporate video, and really, to me, that's the only way the most effective way to get your point across. They've done the studies, 90% of retention, 90% plus more effective. I mean, there's a reason people aren't reading the newspaper. They're taking the sound bites.
Well, honestly, though, in SEO, we started looking and we run some AI protocols to understand what content's working, and we were doing it for construction companies, big construction recently, right? And we look for something called share of voice. What content's got share of voice? 60% of the share of voice for these construction industry was video. Right. In SEO. All right. So now all of a sudden it changes your whole game. You've got to go create a bunch of video content.
Listen, I've had conversations. This one company was wronged. A construction company was wronged by someone. We went out and created them protesting. And then, I interviewed the guy well, why? And so, yeah, it's every industry. And when people realize that, it's every industry. It's not like, oh, yeah. I mean, I have the same conversations with nonprofits.
Yeah.
You better differentiate yourself, especially now where the dollars are tighter. You better tell your story. Why it's important.
You got to do the whole content thing. So we need to take a break, and we'll come back. I want to really dig into your philosophy of content and what you do. All right. Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy, back with the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast and my guest, Rich Bornstein. So Rich, I see in your LinkedIn profile, you call yourself a magic content creator. So what is magic content, or is it magic content creator?
Well, that's because you can't just go out and say I create content. You have to position yourself. I like to think it's magic. Again, I believe that I can grab those nuggets out of you, that I can do my research, and then I can showcase what it is that makes you special. That's why I call it magic content creator. Because I'm not just going A, B, C, D. I'm actually delving into what really is special about you, your company, your product, your project, because that's what life is about. I mean, it really is what our lives are about. What do you pay attention to? I mean, you pay attention to the things that connect with you on an emotional level, because we're getting bombarded from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. So emotions are the things that drive us. And so everything now is it's all a personal story, and it's how you tell that personal story that differentiates you, in my opinion.
Do you think that is why content is so important now? Is that there's that authentic touch of emotion that you have to reach somehow?
Absolutely. Hey, look, and things are fleeting. I mean, I'm stunned. I mean, could there have been a hotter company than Peloton? Come on, Peloton and all that stuff. They're gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but that just shows you how fleeting it is. One moment you're on top of the world, the next, you're valued at.
They did some really bad videos.
Yeah, they did. But what I'm saying is, one day you're emotionally connected, and the next day you're gone. And so
that is the flip side of wise content is unwise content,
absolutely,
which goes viral and destroys you.
Right. Well, it used to be the way they say any publicity, there's no such thing as bad publicity. That's not true. I mean, that's not true anymore. I mean, in the days of today's world and social media, where it's all driven by that. Mm. I mean, yeah, bad publicity can kill you from a business standpoint. So that's why you got to be careful with stuff.
It is, though, I think unfortunately we do have a polarized society. So bad publicity in one tribe can be good publicity in the other, right?
Well, there's that. Yeah, there's definitely.
Yeah. I technically had bad publicity in rural North Carolina when I did a vaccine mandate, but it was good publicity to get a national audience to come to my little mountain resort, right? So, so it happens. So, you obviously, in our discussion, you used to be a writer, but now you're mostly in video, and you are a big proponent of video content. Why?
Well, again, you are your best spokesperson, generally speaking. Again, we always point out all the flaws in ourselves. Like I said, I can't stand my own voice. I don't like my receding hairline. Maybe I'm a few pounds heavier than I really want to be. But you're still the best person to tell your story. And how do you do that? I mean, you're gonna write something that nobody's gonna read. That's you're gonna write a business plan. No, it's just you. It's you being authentic. It's you just talking directly to the camera, or if someone's interviewing you, setting it up a certain way, just saying, hey, I got into this because, and I believe in this. I mean, look at everything that we sticks with us today. I mean, you like the nuts.com guy. He says, yeah, my grandfather started this all the time. And well, that differentiates them. It's a family business. He talks about the love that goes into it. Okay. And boom, all of a sudden now it's not just nuts.com. Oh, that's that great family that's been doing it. Okay. It's the real estate guy that says, we're not discount realtors. We are professional realtors. We just give it to you less expensive, at a rate that you're going to enjoy. That's creating a bond with your audience. And that's why I believe in it. And what's the best way to do that? Video, because people want to see you. They don't just want to hear you, and they sure as heck don't want to read. They don't want to read it because they won't. I mean, it's just what it is.
So in written content and the content I've been used to, there's we go through the phases. You got to overcome people not liking you, right? And then they got to be non-skeptical. Then you actually get that. You have to do something to get them to take an action. What do you do in video to actually, go from getting them to like you to actually get them to take an action?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I'm most proud of, and this is post, the movie and TV stuff. So Adobe came to me a few years ago now, and they were basically changing their business model. Not that they explained any of this to me, but they were changing their business model, and they were creating. They wanted After Effects to be part of anybody who was doing any sort of editing at all. They wanted After Effects to be part of the vernacular, like boom. And they were changing their business model because back in the day, as you recall, you used to have to get a disc and put, and you had to get a piece of software. And all of a sudden they're saying, no, we're going to download it and anybody can have it and it's going to be affordable and all that kind of good stuff. Well, how do you do that? You just say, hey, we made After Effects affordable. We're going to do it. No, there was a story there was a story to tell. And the story was, they took a big movie by Martin Scorsese. It was called The Aviator. Okay. And they hired an Academy Award winning effects person by the name of Rob Legato, who is, one of the most renowned, celebrated people in the industry. And I sat with him, and he showed us on any computer, all you needed was the software. You didn't need $1 million machine anymore, how he created the effects for The Aviator. Remember, that had Kate Blanchett, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And it was Scorsese. It was considered a big movie. And Rob said to me, and this is the example of a nugget that I'm proud of, is he said, for a movie that was this big, the effects budget was this big. And so I had to come up with creative ways in order to make it feel big and stay within the budget. Boom. That spoke to people. They took my 5-minute video and shopped it around the world, and it was a company changing event. Now, I'd love to tell you that I was smart enough to realize that I was changing the software industry, but to me, I was just doing a gig. And it was like, I was just so pleased that he was able to make those points and I was able to capture it. And we got a lot of great feedback on that. I'll give you another example. I used to do a lot of work in the diabetes community. So one of the things that I was, again, these are the nuggets that I'm talking about video wise. So I was doing a piece on Leslie West, who sadly passed away, I think within the last year. He was the guitarist from Mountain, truly one of the greatest guitarists probably that walked the planet. And diabetes caught up with him. So he did 2 interviews after he lost his leg to diabetes. He did one with Howard Stern and one with me. I was after him for a year to get this interview with him. And he said, and our thing was testing. People needed to test. And he said, testing, what the hell did I know about testing my blood sugar? I tested a microphone. There's my nugget. I knew there was my nugget. So those are the kinds of things that you're looking for, because if he just says, yeah, I lost my leg, you're going to go, okay, great. That's really sad. But he was able to illustrate it from a, he said, I wasn't spelt like George Clooney. He says, I existed on Twinkies. And, when the doctor said, so you got diabetes, he goes, I didn't care. I was a rock star. I didn't give a shit, so I think those things were those little nuggets were always the things that, and they really play well on video when you capture them.
So finding those nuggets in the video is what the call to action is. It's at that moment where they say, oh, I can identify with that, and this is the action he took, and I should do that too.
Yeah, it's like I'm doing some work for these group of doctors that are starting this virtual assistance company. And one of the things that one of the doctors says, he says, doctors just want to be doctors. This allows us to be doctors. We don't have to sit there. We have a company that, that will do all the vetting. I don't have to, go through whatever. I save money. There's your nugget. That's your call to action, and it's your nugget. And so it's not like, oh yeah, we're starting a VA company. Who cares?
Yeah.
But they're speaking to a group of people, and what better line is it than doctors just want to be doctors? I mean, that's there you are. And those are the kind of things that.
What is your process or philosophy of accomplishing getting that nugget or building this content?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is a lot of it's research. Again, I go back to my writing background and go, what's going to make this interesting to the most people? What's your target audience? How do you reach them? What mistake people make is they think you should always play to your strength. You don't go after your weakness and, I know I'm going to get those people. You play to your strength. So who is your target audience and what's going to make them prick up their ears and become a believer, become a champion of you? So that's part of my process. Just like if they said, hey, do a story on you, I would research you. I would figure out, what makes you interesting, at least in my opinion. I mean, I obviously grabbed the story about, your vaccine mandate and how you turned a negative into a positive. There's your nugget. Okay. But again, that doesn't happen by magic. That's hard work. That's asking questions. That's not being afraid of saying, well, what about this? What about that? And maybe it's I'm naturally inquisitive, naturally curious. And I just carry that over to my work. I mean, I guess you can be timid, but it's a little harder to get those nuggets if you're kind of in the background and not willing to ask the questions.
And what would, some company want to do video content, what mistakes should they avoid?
Well, I think the mistake that most people make, and this is just my opinion, is they think, oh, I was just interviewed on CNN. I'm going to run that piece. Okay. I was just on, I was just on CNBC. I'm going to run that piece. That's the common mistake. Nobody's going to pay attention to that. Oh, great. Those are only going to be the fans that are going to pay attention to that. What they need is the voice of the company. And that's, I can't stress that enough. If you are the head of the company, now, if you don't like your voice, if you think you're not a good spokesman, fine. We will find a way to tell a story where we're using your words and telling your story, but we'll do it a different way because you're truly not camera ready. I get it. That's okay. But the mistake that people make is they think, oh, I just spoke at this convention. I'll just run that video. That's not video. That's not video marketing. That's not video storytelling. That's not wise content. That's just laziness, in my opinion. And I don't think it does you any good. The only people that are going to look at that piece are people that already love you. So
Right.
it's not really going to help your outreach. Yeah, you just put, I was on the show, but your voice needs to cut through. And I think every company
I think that's so important. I think that's whether it's written content or video content, you got to know the audience, and then your voice has got to come through, or it's just not working anymore. So it's important. So we have to take another break, and then we'll finish up. We can tell us a little bit about what your company does and some whatnot.
Join us every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern for The Mind Behind Leadership, where we focus on what leadership really means to us and to others. We have practical discussions with the CEOs of some of the world's largest companies, owners of small businesses, and experts in psychology and behavior to get that inside track, what to do, what to avoid, and what really happens. Join me, Graham Dobbin, at the new time, 4 p.m. every Tuesday for The Mind Behind Leadership, here live on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc. Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hi, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy, back with the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast, and my guest, Rich Bornstein. So, Rich, you're working for some big companies, and then you decide to go out and form your own company. How come?
It kind of happened by accident. When I left Goldwyn, I got a call from Sundance. They were starting a new TV outlet, became Sundance TV. And they said, look, movies, TV, marketing, let's do this. So I thought it was going to be a few month gig, and I ended up working with them. They wanted me to move to New York, but there was no way I could move to New York back at the time. And so I realized, wow, I could work. I could work in my sweats. I could work in my shorts, and because we'd be on these conference calls that basically last all day long. Okay, we'll reconvene in an hour. So, and then I remember the guy that was Robert Redford's right-hand man at the time said, Rich, it was one of those days I never got out of my bathrobe, and I went like, oh my God, yeah, because me too. I'd wake up, take my kids to school, put my shorts on, I go in the room, and that would be the end of that. I realized this is okay. And then from then, people started coming to me and going, hey, Rich, you want to do this? And I said, yeah. You want to go to Ireland and, do some behind the scenes? Yeah, okay. You want to do this? You want to cut a trailer for us? Yeah. All the things that I had supervised, but not really done for myself. I did it for other people. And then I realized I actually enjoy this. And I don't need that 9 to 5 grind now. Now that the kids are, out of the house, do I wish I had that huge, income, that from working at the studios, all those? Yeah, I do. I'm not going to lie about that, but I don't regret anything. I was able to coach Little League. I was able to do many things that I wouldn't have done had I been tethered to a big studio job. And
so owning your own business, it's an up and down thing. You have those
moments. It is. And look, yeah. I'm one of those people that I work all the time. When I'm walking the dog, I'm working. You know what I mean? Yeah. When I get up in the morning, I'm working. So I've never been someone that's been able to compartmentalize. So my brain's always clicking. In fact, one of the things I learned is that when I get, frustrated or angry or whatever, I go for a walk, and then all of a sudden what seems unsolvable becomes solvable. And I think when you're at a high level job, the emotions are so high that I think sometimes you forget that. You think, you just use your position and you probably take advantage of that. So I try to fold those things in. I mean, what I tell people, because a lot of people look at me, especially when I'm dealing with other entrepreneurs. Well, if you worked on all this Oscar stuff, what do you want to help us for? I love telling stories. If I can help you get to the next level, if I can help you launch and become successful, that makes me feel really good. Why? Because you're a real person. Okay. You're providing for your family or whatever your goals are. That there's something to be said for being able to do that. So I enjoy the big and the little. And as a matter of fact, some of the people, that have the little ideas that get bigger, they're really fun. I mean, it's really exciting to be able to take them, to the other level and bring the experiences that I've had and kind of keep the philosophy so they can do it. And that's really, what I do.
So you help companies create the video. Do you also help them how to use that video to do effective marketing?
Yeah, what I do, I have a pretty straightforward philosophy. First of all, even though I do go longer sometimes, I think your main video really should not be more than 2 minutes. I mean, they've done studies. Most people will not watch a 2-minute video all the way through if they don't have a vested interest. Yeah. But still, I use a 90-second and 2-minute. That's the main one. And then I cut that down to a 60. That's for Instagram. Can't be any more than a 60. And then I do a 30 for Twitter, because you can't run anything more than that. And I tell people, okay, these are the tools that you're going to need. Also, the shorter ones are your outreach, for your email outreach. So I do teach people, try to tell them how to do it. One conversation I had with somebody was just with these doctors. He said, well, we're going after doctors. And I had interviewed his chief of staff, one of the nurses, and she said it. I said, there's your Instagram piece. Because, that doctors aren't looking at Instagram. I go, I know, but the people that are hiring that want to use your service are. And her voice is talking to them. And look, I can't force them to do it. All I can do is create the content, say, here it is. But, I believe strongly in that.
No, it's good. What you say resonates. Even 10 years ago, I was working with a lot of personal injury lawyers. Even back then, they had a need for video content, and what they needed a lot of was testimonials from clients.
Yeah,
right? But they couldn't be very long. People wouldn't watch them, but it could be a minute. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing too. I do a lot of testimonials, and there's an art to doing that too. Because the guy, one guy says, "Well, I just use anybody," and I go, "No, you still got to tell." It's still got to be a story. It's still got to look professional. It still needs to resonate with your audience. You can't just throw it against the wall and say, "Oh yeah, that's good enough." That's not really how the world works. So You're right. Testimonials are very, very important. But again, there's an art to doing those, in my opinion, as well. You can't have a 6-minute testimonial and think it's going to help you.
Yeah. So the name of your company is Bornstein Media. How do people find out more about you?
Well, they can look me up on LinkedIn. They can, go to my website, bornsteinmedia.com. Hopefully I'm all over the internet, maybe not as much as I'd like to be, because I'm just starting my own video series, but sometimes I get busy working for other people, but that's really the easiest way.
And if they call you or reach out to you,
they can call me.
What's your process? What's your process to onboard somebody?
It's, I want to find out what their pain points are. I want to find out what their challenges are. I want to find out what keeps them up at night, and I want to find out their goals. I call myself a solutionist because I've never had the ability or really the privilege of saying, I don't know. I mean, I might say that I don't have an instant, but I've always had to come up with solutions to whatever the challenge is. And I pride myself on that. So I want to know the person's or the company or the product or the project's challenges are. Like I said, what their pain points are, what their goals, what their specific goals are. Not, I want to rule the world. Okay, that's great.
Right.
We all want
Yeah.
But
I
really,
do. I mean,
but they're attainable goals.
Yeah.
What the steps are. And then that's really it's a very simple conversation. And we're either a good fit or we're not. I mean, it's the frustrating part of it is when I talk to people and I know that I could help them, and then they put me on the back burner. They say, oh, well, I've spent all this on this. And I go, well, you're silly. I mean, you spent $1 gazillion on a coach, but it hasn't helped you because you still need the next part of it. What's the next part? You need to create content, wise content, as you put it, to help you, to differentiate you, to cut through the noise. And
you need a magic content creator to create wise content.
Absolutely. That's why you and I are going to work together in the future, right?
So I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I think that this will be an episode that will repeat several times. So this is the Wise Content Creates Wealth podcast. It's on the talkradio.nyc network, where there's a lot of live podcasts. I recommend you investigating talkradio.nyc to find some content that might be worthwhile to listen to. It ranges from business to travel to New York to self-help, all sorts of things. In fact, I run a separate podcast on this network called Gateway to the Smokies. It talks about my tourism resort and areas in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And that's on Tuesdays from 6 to 7. And this one runs every Friday from 1 to 2. And I appreciate everybody being here. My company is Galileo Tech Media. Go to galileotechmedia.com to find out more about the services of content marketing, SEO, and creating wise content there. Again, thank you very much, and see you guys next week.